What else did I have left to do in the States that I didn't already do? Was it worth sacrificing what I wanted to do in Taiwan? That is a very critical question that I asked myself. What was so valuable that I need to stay another year? This is the story of why I quit my dream job and moved to Taiwan. I want to start off by first acknowledging that I am very privileged to be in this position, to have this choice, and to be filming this video. I will try to be as transparent as possible. However, there are personal details of my life that I am not comfortable sharing with the world, so hope you understand. Hi, I'm Kristine. I am a Taiwanese American brand strategist that previously resided in New York City. I went to school and grew up mostly in Taiwan. Then after college, I decided to pursue my master's in integrated marketing communications from Northwestern University. After graduation, I went into shopper marketing and then into brand strategy. I have been in the field for about 5-ish years, and that is when I decided to make the career transition and personal transition of moving from New York to Taiwan. And picking up where we last left off in the last video, today I will talk a little bit more about the 5 areas in life and elaborate more on the decision making of how I prioritize them. If you are also facing a similar choice in life, I hope this helps. So first was family. I'm in my late 20s. I'm not married yet. I don't have kids. So by family, I mean my parents and grandparents mostly. This is one of the reasons why it was really pulling me to Taiwan. I ranked this the highest because, well, first, my family and I have a close relationship and I really value them. I cherish the time we have, and I did come back to Taiwan every year for a few weeks at a time. So while I've been doing that, I've been working from Taiwan and working nights, and that was just not sustainable for me. It was not good for my personal health to be doing this for weeks at a time. This one was the hardest and biggest pull in this whole decision of moving back to Taiwan, because as sad as it is, you only have a set amount of time with your family. As you're maturing, as you're progressing on in life and career, your parents and grandparents are also getting older. I wanted to be able to spend at least quality time with them before they were getting a little bit too old. And every year I came back, I realized they were getting older, and that broke my heart. I realized that they wouldn't be able to be around forever, and I knew I would hate myself if I wasn't able to spend valuable time with them before it was too late. So I could stay in the US for a few more years before moving back to Taiwan, but then it was balancing that quality time, valuable time I would be able to have with them, and thinking about what else did I want to accomplish in the States before that. And that is a very critical question that I asked myself of what else did I have left to do in the States, in New York, that I didn't already do, and was it worth sacrificing what I wanted to do in Taiwan? Secondly, I ranked was relationship and my significant other. As you may or may not know, I was in a long distance relationship. My partner was in Taiwan while I was in New York and in the States. This one is a little bit tricky because there isn't a hard answer of how our relationship was going to progress, but I knew that my relationship could not be progressed when we were halfway across the world. For many, they start off with a relationship and then separating, moving across the world, and having that strong foundation before you started long distance. But for me, we were always long distance. And because of his line of work, it's a lot easier for me to move back to Taiwan than for him to come to the States. So the reality was we never lived in the same city. We never lived in the same country, except for a few weeks at a time. And then when we were also in the same city, we were living different time zones. He would be getting off work, and then I would just be waking up. We would eat together, and then he would go to sleep, and then I would start work. So even when we had time together, we were still, in a way, living our separate lives. It was almost impossible for us to imagine what a life would be like together if I didn't move back to Taiwan. So late 20s, 30s, if not now, what then? If I did delay this move for 1, 2, 3 years, it's fine, but what was the reason of doing so? Third was friends. This was kind of a neutral decision of Taiwan and the States. I did grow up mostly in Taiwan. However, I did spend the last 7 years of my life in the States. And friends, you're friends because of the proximity that you have in life, the shared qualities, shared outlook, shared values, but also your day-to-day. So because I was in the States for so long, I had more things in common with my friends in the States just because of our careers, where we worked, our lifestyles. We were able to plan trips together, whereas with Taiwanese friends, it was hard. So most of my closest friends are now in the States. However, a lot of my friends aren't in New York anyways. We're spread out all over the country. So I have friends in Taiwan. I have friends in the States, but I knew a lot of my Taiwanese friends in the States, they would be coming back to Taiwan every year. It would be harder for me to see my non-Taiwanese friends, but it's not like I'm not going back to the States. And it's not like I'm never gonna see them or talk to them ever again. So it wasn't much of a determining factor because both were equally strong of friends in both regions. Next was hobby and lifestyle. This was also a little bit more neutral, however, with a slight pull of the States and New York. I knew I loved my life and I wanted to retain what I had in life and my hobbies like photography, art, jazz, traveling. I love that lifestyle and I lumped it all into the hobbies category. I loved being able to just go to an art museum on a summer Friday, get off at 1 and just go to MoMA or go to the Met, and being able to go to a gallery for free on Sundays. That was the life that I loved having in New York. I loved having that ClassPass subscription and being able to try like hot yoga, boxing. I love the food. I loved being able to go to restaurants, trying out new foods, new cuisines. And I love that about New York. There's so many art, culture, food, always things to try. There's no place like New York, so I will be missing that. However, I know I will still be able to enjoy myself and develop new hobbies, develop my old hobbies. There's good food in Taiwan too. There's a lot of great food. And then the last bit was the career. This one is more neutral, however, again, swaying to the States. I have 5 years in my career, and within brand strategy, there are a few global hubs of where branding is more popular and more in demand. So there is New York, London, Amsterdam, Seoul, Tokyo. If I moved to another city that is a hub, it would be easier for me to continue on with my career progression and all that such. But branding isn't big in Taiwan. It's gotten to be a little bit better, but still not great. Branding not being a big thing in Taiwan, it's a bad thing in a way, but it's also a good thing. I am further on in my career. It gives me the opportunity to take my expertise and come back and being able to build this industry with the people that are already here. And I will be getting more into this in another video that I am planning on, which is job hunting and the whole job situation in Taiwan. But I have been observing in the last 3 or 4 years and realized that branding, it is on the up and up. There's so many brands, companies in Taiwan that are so great, but haven't been doing the best job at talking about themselves and branding themselves. There are companies willing to invest in branding now, and the government is also trying to uplift this as an industry. So I see this as a huge opportunity for me to come back at this stage in time, at this point in my career, and being able to have a footing in Taiwan branding world. And then also furthermore, as a career progression, I want to start developing a skill set to train people. So being in Taiwan as an industry that is smaller and there are fewer people, that I'm able to start developing this skill at a earlier stage in my career. So that was a plus in Taiwan. And then so I did weigh that against staying in the US. I could progress on with my previous role and continue rising up the ranks, or I could go client side and help US brands. But for me, helping US brands versus helping Taiwanese brands. And for me, as a passionate Taiwanese American, I do feel that desire to help Taiwan. US, there's more certainty, Taiwan, more uncertainty. However, there is more excitement in developing my career in Taiwan. So that was the life priorities. It wasn't quantitative, but thinking about most of that, I did realize that the balancing scale was tipping towards Taiwan. And so when that was the most likely reality, I started looking into the cost of living of whether I would be able to maintain my lifestyle that I had in New York, in Taiwan. New York's very expensive, earn more. Taiwan, you earn less, and then the cost of living is less. But what is it really? I looked up, this is from 𝕒𝕚𝕦𝕔𝕙. There's a lot of websites that calculate this, but this is from one of the websites, and it did say that the cost of living in Taipei is 64% cheaper than living in New York. According to Numbeo, the cost of living in Taipei is 51% lower than New York. That's without rent, but with rent, it's about 65.7% lower than New York. So similar to the other sites, because we know rent in New York's very, very expensive. They do go more in depth. I will also link it in the description box down below. Depending on where you are, you could also get a glimpse of how cost of living differs. The biggest things that are in my consideration are like salary, rent, tax, food, travel. Those are like my big categories. So first, rent. Rent in New York is freaking expensive. And personally, I know I would be having to pay at least $3,000 of rent in Taiwan. The plus is that I would be moving in with my boyfriend, so I would not be paying singles tax anymore. It is so expensive, as I'm sure a lot of you watching this know. It is so expensive to be single and to live as a single person. You are paying more money for your own desk, you are paying more money for your own bed. The bed takes up so much space. I wouldn't have to do that anymore. I would not have to pay the singles tax. That was very happy for me. I know Taipei rent is still expensive, but if you think about New York rent versus Taiwan rent, and the consideration that I wouldn't be living and paying singles tax anymore, that is a huge down in my expenses. The second is taxes. I'll be making less, but I'll also be getting taxed less. So it's not just of a monetary amount, but also percentage-wise. Tax in the States, very expensive. And tax in New York City, even more expensive. Taiwan, I didn't actually realize this until I did my research. For someone that is making $100,000 a year, you would be paying about 28% in taxes. In Taiwan, you make about 1/3 in salary. So that translates to around 1 million in Taiwanese dollars, 100万台币. You would be paying around, like, am I wrong in this? If you earn 1 million Taiwan dollars, you're paying like 3 or 4% on average of tax. Please let me know if I'm doing this wrong, but it's like very low. If you're earning like 200K in the US, you're paying more than 28%, but in Taiwan, it's probably like around 9%. So yeah, you're paying a lot less in taxes when you make the move from the US to Taiwan. Food costs. I know inflation is bad in Taiwan. I know food is expensive, but so is New York. And for me, I don't love to cook and like to have the option of dining out if I can. And in New York, like cheapest tacos, Chipotle, Naya is like $14. But in Taiwan, I can get by with like $3. There's a lot of good, cheap street food in Taiwan, and I love that. I will miss like great New York dining, but like dining in New York is so expensive. It's the tax, it's the service fee. And right now it's like starting off at like 18 to 20%. And in Taiwan, you don't really have tipping culture. Sometimes if you go to a better restaurant, there is like a 10% like service fee. However, it's not really a thing. So I know I wouldn't be able to eat street food every day, but I have the option of choosing cheaper options when I want to, and then still being able to have like fine dining, and that like balances out. And I think I like cheap food, so I may be saving more or like spending less on food, maybe, but that's like my girl math is telling me. Travel. This is a huge minus point in lifestyle. Because I will be making less, my earning ability versus the rest of the world is lower now. So I wouldn't be able to afford traveling as much as when I was in New York, and it would hurt more because the money does not go as far as US dollars. But that is okay with me of traveling less and being able to prioritize the other things in life that I value more right now. One of the most important things, safety. I'm bringing to you numbers. I looked at global indices. Most of these rankings, New York is safer than Taipei. They view it from different categories like digital security, health security, infrastructure security, and personal security in the States versus Taiwan. Digital security is very strong. Health security, there's a little bit of a difference. So some rank New York higher, some rank Taipei higher. But for me personally, I feel more healthy in Taiwan than in New York because healthcare in the States is so expensive. I don't feel comfortable with going to the doctor unless I am very, very, very sick. I tough it out when I can and just take flu medicine just because I don't want to break my bank. And in Taiwan, I feel a lot more in control of my health and feel more comfortable going to the doctor. Yeah, that's just the reality. I feel healthier here because of the accessibility of doctors and healthcare in Taiwan. The next is infrastructure security, and this is ranked that New York is better than Taiwan. Yes, I don't know what they mean, but I'm just reading this. And then personal security is Taipei greater than New York. I feel very safe in Taipei. I feel safe in New York as compared to other cities in the States. However, I recall like these incidents that I did not feel like I was safe. I remember gun drills in high school. I remember when I was at Northwestern. Thankfully, it turned out to be a hoax, but there was a very traumatizing afternoon on a Wednesday. It was told that there was an active shooter on campus and it was on my block in my building, and I was traumatized and terrified for 3 or 4 hours, and that I will never be able to wipe from my memory. I felt like my personal life was at risk that day. I got spat on when I was in New York, so again, feel a lot safer in Taiwan, and I value very much my personal safety. Environmental safety, which is New York better than Taipei, but not by a lot. The safety of the situation in Taiwan, I've grown up hearing that. I'm not saying that it's not something of concern, but it's something that I personally don't know how to evaluate and consider. There's still a lot of companies that are continuing to invest in Taiwan, so I think that speaks a little bit to maybe the safety of Taiwan as a region. I know I am concerned about that, but I can't put it into a solid understanding of it to be able to put that into my consideration, although it is in my consideration. Lastly, I want to wrap up with ultimate triggers. Those are all great reasons of why Taiwan is an eventual goal for me, but why now? Why right this moment did I decide to move back to Taiwan? And there were a few reasons. The first was the return to office policy and mandate. Because of the mandate, that agreement that I had with my company to come back to Taiwan for a few weeks at a time was annulled. And that was just a huge trigger for me. Time with my partner and my family would be greatly decreased, and that put an alarm bell on my consideration. The second was my lease was up. I knew that I had to leave my previous apartment. That goes back to like my question, what did I have left to do in New York this year that I didn't already do? What was so valuable that I need to stay another year? And that was magnified just because I had to move. The cost of moving, the cost of additional rent, the cost of time, all that were costs that I had, and what were the marginal benefits? What else did I want to do in New York? The marginal costs outweighed the benefits. There's so much more costs for me to stay one more year. There are benefits, but the equation didn't match up anymore. And then the last thing was I found a job. If I didn't find this job, I don't know if I would have the courage to just say, I quit my job, I'm moving back to Taiwan. But because I had this opportunity lined up, that made me ultimately feel like I was comfortable with leaving New York and feeling like I am not missing anything. I am just continuing on in life in the new geolocation of Taiwan. So yeah, that was a long video. I hope that covers most, if not all of your questions about why I ultimately made the decision to move from New York to Taiwan. If you have any additional questions, please let me know down below. If you are also thinking about making this move, I wish you all the luck. I hope you like this video, and I will see you next time. Bye!